Alrighty, so Dr. Nuclear Winter sent this to me, and I want to go ahead and take a look and see what's going on here. It says Krystal and Saagar grill Democratic senator on Epstein, Zoran, and Israel. Let's see what's going on here.
Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan. Senator, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
We have a very limited amount of time. This is the internet, so you're here, and it's important that we ask some of the questions that are animating some of the younger voters and others. I assume that's part of the reason that you're here. The first is about Jeffrey Epstein. This is a story that's really captured a lot of America's interest. So you're a former CIA officer. Do you think that Jeffrey Epstein had any connections to U.S. or Israeli intelligence agencies?
So, not that I've ever seen or heard, but there's
Have you
a
asked?
really... No, I haven't asked. But you know...
Oh, okay. But have you asked? No, I haven't. Okay. Try again.
This is like a solvable question because President Trump's CIA director, John Radcliffe, can answer this question, right? There is no shortage of people in this administration who can answer that.
Clueless Expert, thank you for tipping $100. Holy fucking shit. I guess that means I have to go ahead and do the thing. Yeah. Okay, fine. Ooh. You don't get much more enthusiasm out of me than that right now. My equipment's broken at the moment. My equipment's broken at the moment. Also, thank you for that. That lowers the amount that is going to be required to send me to the gym. That covers 1/5 of it. So, instead of 69 subs and Gargamel Gold, thank you for resubscribing. He says, hello, Suris. Long time no see. How's it going? That means that we have, what is it? Instead of 68, it'll be 48 to get there. Okay, back to the interview.
That question, I would be very surprised. I'm going to be honest. I know your views on it. I would be surprised.
Okay.
But I'm like a Middle East analyst. I was doing my time going after terrorist groups and militias in Iraq. And so I never saw it. I never heard anything about that. I, again, would be surprised, but there's an easy way to solve that problem.
Well, that's the question then. So in terms of, because I know you've expressed some concern about classified information, et cetera, in the past, would you be fine then with the full release of these Trump Epstein files, even if they did reveal an intelligence connection?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, like, it's such a distraction from, in my mind, like what I really care about, which is helping people like live well in Michigan.
I feel like whether or not our president is a rapist is something to care about, and whether or not our president is the kind of person to cover up rape is something to care about. But okay.
Just get it over with and get it out. And this wasn't like my issue. It's still not the thing that wakes me up in the morning and I want to work on. But I think it's okay to say it's a full distraction now in Washington. Everyone's talking about it. So just unveil it, do whatever you need to do, answer the questions, and move past it.
Well, that's the last question then. So there's some accusations here from the Republicans on Epstein here, just about, why didn't you care for over 4 years? I know you asked the question in 2020. You said, I don't care particularly about Bill Clinton, et cetera. I mean, that's somewhat understandable, but, we do have a person, very circumstances, let alone, the sex trafficking organization, others. So, why don't you answer that question? Like, why is this now is the time that you do care?
Yeah,
I mean, not particularly care.
It's horrible when you have a pedophile and someone who had a literal pyramid scheme of recruiting 14 and 15-year-old girls for illegal sex. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah.
At the time, I mean, I sort of saw it as like one of these horrible stories that comes out every 5 months, about somebody. I think the Weinstein thing had happened. There weren't Michiganders, to my knowledge, who were involved, women, young girls who were involved. So I kind of saw it as like a horrible moment, but not particularly something that's like going to decide whether someone in my state can buy a house or get a good job. So to me, it was just like it wasn't like a strategic issue, right, for me. And then now it just...
Okay, I understand where she's coming from, but that feels a little bit... Oh, that's where I was supposed to be. Okay. That feels a little bit distracting. So this feels like a blue broom trying to sweep this away. Yeah.
Is like grown. And I think there is a difference between saying some rich guy or a former politician was named in those things versus the president of the United States. That to me is apples to oranges, because one of them is leading the free world and one of them's not. So if his name is in there as it appears it is, just like deal with it and let's get on with it at this point. And my 10-year-old nephew understands that the president is trying to dodge, trying to distract, trying to talk about other things. He hates answering this question. Like, we get it. So it feels off to the average person, right? To a 10-year-old, they're like, did he do something, right? So just get through it, get it out, and let's move on to real, for me, like real economic issues.
So then if he's...
Okay, so I want to agree with you about let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off, because it needs to be ripped off, but I don't like the language of let's deal with the Epstein thing. Let's deal with whether or not our country is being ran by a giant fucking sex pest. Let's just deal with that and then move on to real issues. Like, I get it. Whether or not people are going to be able to eat food tomorrow is a real and concerning issue. I 100% understand. At the same time, I have to ask myself, was there maybe not another way to make that not seem like using your constituents as a shield?
Piece of legislation comes forward, you would vote for it to support the release of the files.
Sure.
Okay, all right. So then let's talk about future of the Democratic Party. I know that's something you've been interested in. Democratic approval hit an all-time low from the Wall Street Journal. At the same time, we've seen the rise more recently of some anti-establishment candidates, people like Zoran Mamdani. Give us some of your thoughts there about the future of the Democratic Party, and particularly in the context of Mamdani's victory in New York City.
Well, I guess as a good Midwesterner and Michigander, I'm never going to say that what happens in New York City represents all of America. Sorry, we're a big country, and I would never pretend to totally understand New York City politics. I didn't particularly understand Eric Adams. I didn't particularly understand, I genuinely, right? But I think the message and the hot take out of that election is actually not terribly dissimilar from what we heard in the November election when Trump won, right? Which is people are still focused on the cost of living and not being able to achieve what they thought they could achieve, right? And then number two, people are looking for a new generation of leadership. I don't think it's hard to miss those hot takes. I can have plenty of disagreements with what I've heard Mr. Mamdani propose, and I do. But that message coming out of that election—
What do you disagree with?
Yeah,
just,
like what?
My family was a fourth generation hot dog business. Like, I am here because we live the American dream through capitalism.
Okay.
And so, like a lot of free stuff.
No, you're here in spite of that. You are here in spite of it. So America as a country does as many possible things as it can to fuck over small businesses. Ask any small business how hard it is for them to deal with tax season. Ask any small business how hard it is for them to keep their licenses. Ask any small business how many tax breaks they are not receiving compared to what big corporations have. You, ma'am, did not live the American dream because of capitalism. You lived it in spite of capitalism. In a world where workers own the means of production, as opposed to the capitalists owning the means of production, you would have fewer problems and fewer loopholes to run through, and fewer high-money competitors for your small business, and it would have allowed that business to thrive far, far better and easier. Anyway, go on.
To me, is not the answer. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think that it actually fixes the underlying problem.
The underlying problem is people can't eat. The solution to the underlying problem of people being unable to eat is to get them food. You can teach them how to get food, but it does not make them not hungry right the fuck now. So you make sure that they have the ability to get food in the future and give them food right now. Now, you probably should explain which policies of his you actually have an issue with, as opposed to just the general socialism badism, which seems to be what you're leaning on.
So, but I can have those disagreements.
Also, Lodash, thank you very much for tipping the $50. I appreciate it, and that gets us even closer to throwing my ass in the gym.
I think this is I would be thrilled to have that conversation with him or anyone else about like, hey, we agree that there's an economic problem here. What we do to solve it, let's have that debate. And adults can debate and not like want to kill each other's children.
Well, let's talk then about leadership. So you just talked about that. We see a lot of that from our show, some of the
So that's a bit of a dismissal. When you say, well, I'm willing to have that debate with him anytime, but you're not willing to bring up what parts of his economic policies you have a problem with, I assume that you don't know about his economic policies, which could be very fair because I don't know shit about all of his economic policies. I know he wants to make it easier for people to get housed. He ran a lot on that. He wants to make it easier for people to get on public transport. He ran on that. I don't know much more than that. I'm willing to say that. I don't know whether I agree or disagree with all of his economic takes because I don't know them. When you use the language that she used, it makes me assume that you don't know them.
Democratic side of our audience is furious with Democratic leadership. I mean, do you still support Chuck Schumer's leadership here? He hasn't given an interview in about a month.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I've now served in the Senate for 6 months, in the House before that. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have hard jobs, like herding cats. It's not fun. I've said for a very long time, long before I got into the Senate and long before President Biden dropped out, that we need a new generation of leadership. You can feel it in, and I think at this point, I mean, especially New York, right? You're looking at New York, it's like, I'd rather roll the dice with someone new than have like the warmed over leftovers that I've already known. So I think we have a problem with that across the board. And I think one of the things I can do as the young...
That is, again, a dodge. Do you have a problem with Chuck Schumer? Well, Chuck Schumer has a hard job, and I think we need new leadership. Okay, cool. They didn't answer the question.
Youngest Democratic woman in the Senate, and I'm not young. I'm just young for the Senate. To be clear,
You're young for us.
Yeah. I mean, is push on that and try to give younger leaders a voice in this party in a very real way.
Yeah.
And to me, that's upward pressure. That pressure that you're talking about from the people is good.
So then shouldn't they endorse him? I mean, what kind of a message Schumer and Jeffries, shouldn't they endorse?
They're both from New York.
Donnie, they're both New Yorkers.
Yeah.
And what kind of a message does it send if, like, I mean, this guy won the Democratic primary.
Yeah.
He is the Democratic nominee.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming. If then the centrist leadership of the party said, we can't get behind him.
I mean, you just asked me before we started the exact same question about the Michigan Senate primary, and I'm like, Michigan Democrats don't get involved in primaries. We all are friends. So I can't speak to
That's a fucking lie. That is a fucking lie. That is, I promise you, as somebody who has gotten directly involved in my local parties, no, that is a lie. That is something that is said on paper because Democratic groups are not supposed to endorse singular specific candidates. They are supposed to support the idea of having candidates. They are not all friends, and this is ignoring the plethora of dirty fucking politics that happen in the background. Anyway, continue.
They're doing. I think, I hope that they're meeting. I mean, if this person is...
They did.
Yeah, okay.
And Hakeem Jeffries still refused to endorse him. I mean, think about it from this context. Like, let's say in 2028, a more moderate figure wins the Democratic primary, and a bunch of progressives, AOC or whoever says, we're not backing, we don't agree with you. I feel like you would have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I will say this,
she does the thing my grandma does where she says, yeah, over and over again as you're saying something. It doesn't make it seem like you're listening.
The way that this party works is...
Lord, thank you for giving me your points for... you fucking DJ.
When there's a coalition that sticks together. That's like a numbers issue. That's a data issue. And so I'm always going to be someone who's trying to find unity. That doesn't mean we all agree with each other. And I think, I wasn't in the conversations where they met privately. What they debated, what they talked about, I don't know. But to me, we got to figure out what's common among all Democrats right now. And that's why I focus on the economy, because that is, to me, the cost of living and people not being able to achieve what their parents achieved is the existential issue of our time, is the unifying issue of like all the right wing, left wing, like Americans. I don't even think it's a Democratic Party thing. And to me, that's where I spend my time, because I think 80% of my constituents in Michigan, that's where they live, is like, I just want to be able to go to Disneyland and take my kids the way my dad took me. So that's where I focus on. I'm happy to sit down with any leader. I can't speak to their particular decision to endorse or not.
But,
I'm not endorsing in my own
Right, but
primary.
just yes, the last
Yeah,
question on
but
the
he won the primary.
right. That's my question.
That's what's different.
And
By
your-
12,
I'm
why
sorry to
12
ask
points.
this. They have another election though, yeah?
A general election.
general
Yeah.
election.
He is
But
the
it's-
Democratic nominee.
I see. I'm sorry. This is
Okay.
why I'm saying I don't
Yeah.
follow New York politics. And I think you'd have to ask them. I don't know. I know that for me, whoever wins the Democratic primary in the state of Michigan for the Senate seat that's up, that's who I will endorse, regardless of who it is.
All right, that was my last question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it to Krystal now.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'm actually a little curious, and forgive me if this is impolite. Like, I'm curious why you wanted to talk to us.
What do you mean?
Well, like,
yeah.
we don't have actually a lot of senators, especially ones who have very different ideology than us, reach out. So I'm curious what your goal was and why you thought to come here.
Well, first of all, I think you have a good audience. I mean, right?
We agree.
If you appeal to like 4 friends on YouTube or whatever, then I probably wouldn't be here. But I think, to me, part of the problem is that people have kind of gone to their corners. And I live this, right? I live on my family farm in a town that voted heavily for Donald Trump. I've never won my town. I've never won my precinct. I've never won my neighbors. We get along, but I never won them, and I probably never will. So to me, I think that the people have gone to their corners, and like people who used to be able to talk about politics and disagree don't even get in the same room together. So I kind of like the idea of your show. Like, it was interesting to me when my team pitched me, right? We go through, and like, there's no hiding it. Lots of people are like, how do we evolve in this new space?
Yeah.
You know, like that's not it's not that conversation isn't happening. It is, and I think that's good, and to the credit of lots of shows like yours.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think your show appealed to me as I was being pitched because you guys don't agree. And like, I am very focused. My dad was a lifelong Republican, my mom a lifelong Democrat. Like, Michiganders want to get back to a place where we can disagree on politics and not have it be so like bitter.
So I hear you on the idea of like, you want to talk about the economics and the unifying and cost of living. And I think that ignores a big elephant in the room, especially when you're talking about even Zohran Mamdani. The reason Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer don't want to endorse him is because of his position on Israel. The single most viral clip that he had in that election actually wasn't about cost of living, even though that's what he wanted to make his campaign about. His opponents, Andrew Cuomo in particular, wanted to make it all about accusing him of anti-Semitism and attacking him for his views on Israel and Palestine. So the most viral moment from that entire campaign, I believe, was this moment on the debate stage. Guys, this is E1. Let me go ahead and play this for you, and then I want to get your
Let's see
reaction.
what's going on
Mr.
there.
Mamdani.
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not
As a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
Now, this was considered very controversial when he said it, and I think the results are in at this point that he didn't win in
I feel like nobody should support ethnostates. I think ethnostates are a stupid idea. Anyway, continue.
spite of his position there. He won in part because of it, including if you listen to Andrew Cuomo's numbers, he won a majority of Jewish voters inside of New York City. And so what I'm curious for your view on is, while, I would love to debate you on your healthcare policy. I think we need Medicare for all. You think public option, your housing policy, et cetera. I'm just being really real with you. I don't really hear what you say if you are still supporting a genocide in Gaza. And that's, for me, I'm speaking for myself, but I know there are millions of other people who feel the same, that you have to at least cross this sort of moral threshold. And what it indicates to people, and I think part of why, Zoran won so many people in New York City, young people in particular, but Jewish New Yorkers, people across the board, is because it was a sign of, number one, okay, you're focused on New York City first and foremost.
Sure.
Number two, you're willing to take the heat on an issue that is really difficult for you, where you're being overtly smeared as an anti-Semite. And number three, there's no, entrenched interest that's going to control. You have a spine, you have principles, you're willing to stand up for something. And so, I'm curious for your reflections on that, because of your voting record and where you've stood on this conflict.
Yeah, well, one of the proudest moments that I had in my last election, where I just won on the same ballot as Donald Trump, was that I won a majority of Jewish voters in Michigan. We have a large Jewish population. And I won Dearborn, Dearborn Heights, and Hamtramck, the 3 Muslim-dominated cities. Trump won 2 out of the 3. So I think the thing that I would push back on is voters vote with their feet, right? We have a moment in an election where they get to decide. And there was no issue that was more difficult for me in this last, I would say, 6 years, but certainly in this last election, other than this issue, because it's personal. I'm a Middle East analyst by training. And so what I tried to do, and why I think I managed to win both those communities, is call balls and strikes, literally up to this week, on what's going on.
So let's talk a little bit more about that.
But I think it's important, right? If you're going to push on me, then I think there's one of us that's had an election and had to appeal to my voters and win. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that Mr. Mamdani won. Or actually, I didn't know his name. I didn't know much about him until he won. But because I think this issue is motivating people in a very visceral and personal way.
Yeah.
But it's not the only issue that my voters in Michigan care about.
Of course.
And the online world is extremely, extremely focused on this. But that doesn't always represent the majority. And I think if I can push back, like we're out on the road every day in Michigan when I'm there. In some communities, that issue is the number one issue, 100%. And up till this morning, right? Like people texting my phone and talking about a plan, some of the things we're working on. But I go outside the Detroit area, it's not in the top 40.
But Senator, it's not just a political issue, it's also a moral issue is what I'm trying to get to. So let's talk about those, calling them balls and strikes, if you will. So first of all, do you accept?
So I like that pushback there, because the way that she seems to be framing this mostly is, I'm doing what I need to do to win. I am doing the strategic right things. And the more good for winning I am doing, the better I am winning. On the one hand, I understand, and I get that sentiment. Politics is about power. It is about recognizing that you have an idea for how the world should operate that is different than the norm. Or maybe it reinforces the norm, who knows? But the fact of the matter is, you need power, and so you engage in politics in order to make sure that you can impose your will on other people. That is what politics is. At the end of the day, all it is getting enough power to impose your will on the people around you. And we shouldn't shy away from that. So focusing on this is the stuff that we consider to be worth focusing on because it wins elections, I understand that language. On the other hand, I also understand that genocide's bad. And being on the side that's okay with the genocide should be bad for optics. And you should be willing to have a stance on it that is hardline, irrespective of the optics. But let's see what's said here.
that Israel has a policy of enforced famine and starvation in the Gaza Strip?
I think I literally put my name on a letter yesterday or last night that says like a policy of starvation, people are starting to starve. And in general, I mean, I served in places like Ramadi and Fallujah. I watched in 2004 and 2005, Al-Qaeda terrorists drag American citizens behind a vehicle until they died, right? Like horrible, and then string them up, like a lynching.
Okay.
We still had a responsibility to get aid into Fallujah, despite the fact that we were fighting Al-Qaeda cells in Fallujah, and I have been clear about that.
So this is a crime against humanity. Forced starvation is a crime against humanity.
The occupying power has a responsibility to get aid into the war zone, period.
So
by the law of war.
So in addition, do you accept that the Israeli plan, as reported by Haaretz, as discussed openly by ministers like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, as backed by the President of the United States, is forced ethnic cleansing?
I think we have, as recently as yesterday, the Prime Minister of Israel talking about forced migration into certain areas and then potentially out of the country. That is not legal. That is not on any international standard since World War.
Right, but is that definitionally ethnic cleansing? I know it is. The question is, do you recognize that as ethnic cleansing? Do you recognize that as ethnic cleansing? Do you or do you not? Mizu, thank you for redeeming your points for an... Oh, whoa, I'm sorry I didn't catch it when it happened. Fenakagami, I'm sorry I didn't catch yours when it happened either. Oh, whoa.
War II. And I've been clear about that. So I would ask for a little bit of an open mind.
Well, what I would ask is, listen, I'm a YouTuber. You know, I have my words. That's all I have.
Yeah.
But you're a United States Senator. Like you're not the president, but you have power. So what are you going to do? Because so far what we've seen, I mean, you voted for some of the aid that's been used to massacre children and innocents. You know, you have backed Israel, as far as I can tell, you know, from your voting record at almost every turn. You voted for a definition of anti-Semitism that would, you know, codify anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism. You voted as a member of the House to sanction the ICC for indicting Benjamin Netanyahu, who you just admitted is a war criminal, you know, by your own words. So are you going to join Senator Angus King, Senator Bernie Sanders in saying no more aid to this country that is committing war crimes against innocent civilians?
I think the first thing, if you're asking about what to do with power, and I would offer that right now Democrats own nothing in Washington. So
don't play powerless with me. You're a United
saying,
States Senator. There are things you can do.
In terms of who runs our foreign policy, I just think it's interesting, right, that there was a ton of protests when Democrats were in charge.
There was a protest in Manhattan yesterday.
Okay. I think it's fair to say, just to be honest, that back and forth, like the number of protests that go on now versus before.
Well, they were part of your political coalition.
Well, not to mention, I mean, Senator Slotkin,
that's fair.
Obviously, I'm here.
Yeah.
I was very upset over the Biden administration policy. And as you can tell, I'm very upset over the Trump administration policy.
Yeah.
So let's deal not in strawman, but me and the here and now.
In terms of the tools that I have, the tools that we have in general, to me, the most important thing is a pressurized campaign to get aid into people who are starving. That to me is the number one, because that's the one is urgent and today. And that.
But will you cut off aid to Israel so long as they're committing crimes against humanity?
There is a difference between a weapon to protect a country from incoming missiles versus other type. Offensive and defensive weapons are different.
So would you support offensive weapons ban? Like, would you stop any offensive aid to Israel?
That certainly, to me, would be a place to look, but I'm not going to cut off a blanket next sale on a defensive weapon that comes through. No.
I also reject that because, for example, if Senator Slotkin, if you were asked to support defensive weapons for Iran, defensive weapons for Russia, you wouldn't back that.
No, but Iran, but
they're defensive. They're just protecting civilians, right? So how is it different?
But because Israel's being shot at.
So is Russia.
So is Iran. Yeah. So is Russia.
Ukraine's shooting at Russia right now.
I'm sorry. This is the difference between allies, partners, and adversaries.
Why is it an ally then? What are they doing right now, which makes it an ally?
I think allied relationships, just like Lithuania right now, like an allied relationship or a partner relationship is a long-standing relationship of information sharing and diplomacy. And that is, to me, it's not a like, every day we decide Lithuania is our ally or not. We're allied or not. And sometimes we have big breaks with allies, right? Sometimes we have difficult moments with allies. Sometimes it goes the wrong way with allies. But an allied relationship is a long-term relationship.
It's hard for me to understand why we should ally. Like, I'm sure you believe in, like, or claim to believe in liberal human rights. Why would we ally with a nation that is committing a genocide and live streaming it?
Can I ask, literally, like this, I think about this from the mirror image way, because I do not support the things that Donald Trump is doing, right? But I'm an American. So do I want other countries to look at America and be like,
man, I don't even have notes. The interviewers are doing fucking great.
We can't stand Donald Trump, so we're going to end any longstanding relationship we have with the American people. We're going to cut off any support we give them on information sharing or intelligence sharing. Like, we are not just our elected leaders. And I think that's the thing that's been lost in the conversation.
So B'Tselem and another Israeli human rights organization joined the global consensus, Amnesty International, some 800 scholars. There was a piece from an Israeli scholar in the New York Times in saying this is a genocide. Do you accept, even Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday came out and said it's a genocide. Do you accept that? And if you do, I mean, what responsibility does a United States senator have for, this is a nation that, you know, we send every year billions of dollars to aid that you have, you know, voted for and supported. Like, what responsibility does a United States senator have to prevent genocide and to stop genocide that we see ongoing?
We have a responsibility up till today to ensure that food is getting in.
Is it
so
a
that
genocide?
People don't starve. I don't know that I'd use that term,
Why?
but it is violating the law.
Why would you
of
not
war.
use the term
Why
genocide?
don't you use the term, though?
Because I think,
there we go.
you know, it's, to me, do I think it's ethnic cleansing, which is what I think of in genocide? I don't know if it meets that definition.
They're
Yeah, but
announcing
didn't you
it.
say it earlier?
Oh, boy, howdy. Oh, I can do this one. I can do this one. Does it meet the definition of genocide? Let's see here. Let's do this one. So, here. Let's see here. Let's go just to Wikipedia. Just to Wikipedia. Why not? Ethnic cleansing is the systematic forced removal of ethnic, racial, or religious groups from a given area, with the intent of trying to make the society ethnically homogeneous. So, is Israel an ethno-state? Yes. Which people will occupy the Gaza Strip when they're done killing the Palestinians? Israelis. If ethnic cleansing is the systemic forced removal, not killing, removal of ethnic, racial, and religious groups from a given area, then that's what's happening. My good bitch, that thing that you're doing, it's called waffling.
Clear that it was ethnic cleansing. He said that they wanted to force it. I mean, this is open from the Israeli government. Like, they're saying it. Their
And from
Minister
Trump,
of National
too.
Security, they come out and they're like, we don't need shells. We need shells, not food. And we need to encourage migration. They're saying
you're
Yeah.
not going to get me to
Yeah.
support what the Israeli government is saying right now. Right. I think the point I was trying to make is it's not just about, like, we have relationships with nations over time, regardless of who their leaders are. We have really tough moments. We have easier moments. But that doesn't, so I'm not willing to say that, like, I hate everything ever.
Sure,
into
but
the,
so
the future.
even if you accept that they're committing a genocide, you still wouldn't cut off their aid?
I think that defensive aid and
That means that we're abating a genocide. Like, that's what those words mean. If aid continues despite a genocide happening, then the aid, by definition, is aid of a genocide. It is aiding and abetting a genocide. And to argue elsewise is obfuscation.
offensive aid are different things. And I think at this point,
So
what
if
they're
Nazi
doing
Germany,
every single day
if
is
Nazi
doing,
Germany said we want defensive aid, I mean, it's
on.
just you have to see where they're all weapons that are being shipped. In
They're
another
not using
context,
the weapons that they're using right now. I mean, to be honest, if you look at what's happening on the ground, the military part of this conflict is, for the most part, over. What they are doing,
Senator,
every single day
Senator,
is around aid, and they are hurting people
they have
around
slaughtered
the
over
delivery of
1,000
aid.
people who were starving people just trying to get aid.
That is
I
not
know you
high,
know this.
That's not high intensity bombs. That's not the weapons that that we were talking about 2 years ago. It's just not. I'm sorry. Every single day, the military reports that I read, they are traditional. Like, this is a military that has a bad strategy. It is not the bombs that we were seeing 2 years ago.
It's not a military that has a bad strategy. The strategy is forced starvation and ethnic cleansing. That's their strategy, and they're accomplishing it very effectively with the full backing of the United States government, including, sadly, Democrats.
Well,
and so a couple more questions that I know you have to run. I'm curious why you condemned Rashida Tlaib for using the rally chant, from the river to the sea, something she said for her evokes equal rights. And you have not condemned Randy Fine, who said that Gazans should, quote, starve away, who floated that the Gaza Strip should be nuked, who called Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Soran as well, called them Muslim terrorists. Where is the concern over him?
I have no problem condemning Randy Fine, who I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know who that person is. I have no problem condemning someone who talks like that.
Senator, we have to ask your last question because your staff is telling us. Do you think AIPAC should register as a foreign lobby?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know the answer to that. I think that I know plenty of people who think they should. I don't.
It's kind of a cop-out answer, don't you think?
I literally, I just guess I'd have to look at the definition. I certainly have had my tough moments with that organization, and
so you stop accepting their funding.
You got to get your facts straight. I have not been endorsed by AIPAC. I have not. I'm sorry. I was the first Jew elected to the Senate that was not endorsed by any Jewish group. AIPAC. J Street.
You've been the recipient of their funds.
In 2018, when I first ran, people who were members.
$650,000, Elissa. $656,000 you have taken from AIPAC. Let me say that again. $656,000. I was able to pull that up super quick. The reason that you're waffling on whether or not they should register as a foreign interest group, despite them being a foreign interest group, is because they have given you $500,000. That's why. Anyway, by all means, continue.
Yes, but I've not been endorsed since then. And I just got to be honest, I think that this is where facts really matter. I've had very, very difficult conversations with my colleagues in that organization and made a choice back in 2021. So that was the first time I was up for re-election. So I understand that there's a sort of again, cornered position, but to me, I call balls and strikes as someone who served in the Middle East.
I have one more question I have to ask you. We do the show. I really do my best to try to uphold, basic human rights, Palestinian humanity, oppose the killing of innocent civilians wherever that happens. And I have to tell you, I feel really guilty that I'm not doing enough. I think all the time about, I'm a mom, I think all the time about those moms who can't feed their babies. Mm-hmm. Those babies are starving to death. And I just want to know, you're a United States Senator, you did vote for some of the bombs that were dropped on refugee camps. When kids have been sniped in the head, tents firebombed, people set on fire. The entire Gaza Strip turned into rubble. And now we're seeing these emaciated bodies of babies starving to death every day. And I
know what you can do.
Does it eat you up? Does it eat you up? Do you think, what more could I do? Do you regret any of your votes? Do you regret
let me tell you what I was
complicity?
working on this morning. A group of Jewish rabbis and Muslim community leaders came together with a proposal that we are working on just getting, if we can't get other aid in, at least get baby formula and nutritional supplements for children in. Let that be kind of a green light, never has a problem. No one's trying to eat baby formula other than a baby, right? That is the proposal that I've been working on all night and this morning. So in terms of what we're trying to do, there's not a moment that goes by that this isn't something that I'm working on and something that my own community, not online, but my own community has practical things that they want to do. They're willing to raise the money. They're willing to buy the formula. They're willing to do whatever we need to do to get it shipped in. That's how I spend my time.
But you're not willing to cut off aid to Israel.
That to me is the most effective thing that I can do today.
This is a subtle
So,
question.
no.
Your staff is telling us you absolutely have to go. So we appreciate your time. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Senator.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate you. We will see you all tomorrow. Or counterpoints.
Jesus Christ. We're going to send food so the babies can have a snack or two before Israel drops more bombs on them. So that's I had no information about what this was going in. And now my jaw is just on the goddamn ground. The easiest thing in the world is to say what Israel's doing is a genocide. It ain't hard to do. Fedekagami, thank you for the hydrate. So do I not read cheers anymore? So I do, but my problem is that I'm not getting every single notification because I had to reinstall OBS. I had to reinstall OBS because I had to reformat my entire computer. So if I don't see it in the activity feed when it happens, then I'm not able to actually respond to it in time. But I can respond to it in a backlog sort of way. And apologies, I wasn't able to get to there right now. For the 40 bits says, this is why I'm so sick of people want to go back to when it was okay to disagree talking points. It's a lie. More Americans every day are accepting that those times are dead and gone and they are never coming back because huge swaths of America are in one of two cults, Zionism and Trumpism. Krystal and Saagar get along despite one being leftist and Saagar being literally friends with J.D. Vance because they belong to neither cult. Saagar has completely broke with Trump over Iran. Fair enough. It's not surprised Alyssa was known as a CIA spy and her record is yikesy. Wait, she's former CIA. Before they drop more defensive bombs. Lenari says, isn't formula kind of useless without clean water? Yep. JD Vance has a friend. Yeah, it's a guy from the upholstery store. Gives him all the shit he could ever want. I am flabbergasted going through that entire spiel, seeing her waffle over, again, what should be the easiest thing in the world. The easiest thing in the world should be saying, hey, this group of people is doing a genocide, and also that's bad. That should not be a hard thing to argue. It should not be a hard thing to deal with. But instead, she's just waffling on it completely for as long as she can manage. AIPAC bad, genocide bad should never be hot takes. No, they shouldn't. They should be some of the easiest takes that you ever take. And yet, they're just not, apparently. Well, that's all for that one. That was an interesting listen to. And you know what? You may be asking yourself the question that a lot of people do, quite frankly, a lot of the time whenever we're dealing with all this shit. What can I actually do about this? A senator, a congressperson, a House representative, they all have an amount of power, but what kind of power do I have as an individual? Well, you have a few bits of leverage that I want to go ahead and throw to you that you can utilize. One, you can actually force the hand of your representatives. Now, it's not a 100% perfect solution to anything, but it is definitely one that you can utilize. If you've never used the website 5Calls before, 5Calls gives you an easy access way to talk to anybody in Congress right now who you are trying to change the minds of for any reason whatsoever. If you've not been to the 5Calls website, it looks kind of sort of like this. set your location. You can call your congressperson there. You don't have to go and find this information. The information is all available for you right there. If you would like to instead flood and spam your congresspeople, then you have options like ResistBot, which take care of that. Also, if you're wanting to get some of these ghouls out of their seats of power, the best way to do so is not just participating in elections, but participating in an entire reorganization of our top-down political infrastructure by advocating for a bottom-up political infrastructure. And the Democratic Socialists of America are doing exactly that. And they've actually been very successful. Here in Georgia, we actually have Gabriel Sanchez, who was elected thanks to the DSA. And the person who I was helping with the Marjorie Taylor Greene campaign originally is moving his focus over to more local elections as well, and is being talked to and advised by our local DSAs. So, if you want to get involved, you have this option there. And also, if you want to get involved in protests, you do also have the access to Mobilize. Now, on phones, it's gotten a little wonky, but Mobilize is how you know when things are happening in your area, be it protests or meetings or what have you. A lot of it will be here on Mobilize. AryXD, thank you very much for the raid. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But use these resources so that you actually have a little bit of power in what seems like an otherwise powerless situation. I promise you, you're gonna feel a lot better about all the shit we're dealing with if you are getting involved as opposed to just doom scrolling every single day. That all said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.